The story begins with a boy named Haruka, but we see that he's a loner. He doesn't care about talking to his classmates because he thinks they're just distractions from his books. But a magic circle suddenly appears beneath them, and he gets excited because it's just like the ones he has read about. But he realizes that going to another world would be annoying, and he just wants to read about them instead of going to another world himself. So he tries to leave, but the door is locked, and it won't open no matter what he does. The magic circle starts to get bigger, and the students begin to panic, while Haruka gets into the ceiling, where he thinks he's safe, but the magic circle catches up to him, and he's transported to a white room. Haruka is surprised since no one else is there, and he thinks it's the part of the story where a king or a princess will reach out to him. But the god of the other world panics when he sees Haruka, because the others have already been transported and Haruka was left behind. The god tells Haruka to get ready, and tells him he needs to select his status and skill he will have in the other world. A board appears in front of him, and he notes that each person usually gets 50 points, and they select whatever skills they like. But it's the first time the god summoned so many people, so all the good skills are already gone, leaving only the useless ones. Haruka looks at the board, but he's shocked at how bad the skills are, like one that just lets him hold a stick, so he yells at the god, because he won't be able to survive with such useless powers, and his complaining makes the god grant him all the remaining skills. The god transports him to the new world, and he has no idea what to do since he wasn't prepared, but he realizes that even if he had time, there's no way to truly prepare for being transported to another world. He sees a bag in front of him, and he thinks it's useless, but he's surprised that he can store an unlimited number of items. He puts on his new clothes, and he knows they're just garbage items that the others left, but he still likes them. He tries to check his stats, but a screen tells him to roll his dice, and he remembers he has a skill that allows him to allocate his points by rolling dice. He curses the god for giving him such a useless skill, but he rolls the dice and gets a double M. He has no idea what it means, and the screen asks him which stats he wants to add his points to. He thinks he won't survive by just increasing health or mana, since his abilities are so bad, so he assigns everything to luck. But when he opens his stats, he sees that his luck is maxed, so he realizes that the M on the dice meant max. He's surprised to see that he also has 2 extra skills, and he wonders if it's because he was summoned alone. He realizes he has the loner title, which means he can't form a party, but he has a servitude skill that allows him to command others. He wonders why no one else is around, because all of his class was transported there, but he doesn't care, because he can't form a party with them anyway, so he prepares to secure a base. As he walks through the forest, he's annoyed by the trees blocking his view, and he's worried about being attacked by a monster. He remembers he has a contact lens in his bag, and after he puts them on, he's surprised because it gives him the appraisal skill. He finds some edible mushrooms, so he puts them in his bag, and after that, he comes across a cave, but as he enters, a stone falls in front of him which scares him. After looking around the cave, he thinks it might be a good place to live, since he already has a tent and lanterns. At night, he gathers some sticks, and he uses temperature magic on them to start a fire, which he thinks will be enough to keep any beasts away. He sees that his temperature magic has leveled up, and he's now able to directly start a fire. As he's about to sleep, he worries about the monsters, because the only way he can fight at the moment is with a stick. As Haruka wakes up the next morning, he's relieved that everything is fine, and he knows it's thanks to his monster-repelling items, along with his shut-in skill, which protects his living space. After that, he makes breakfast with the mushrooms and beef jerky from his bag, which he finds delicious. Haruka plans to get more food, so he explores the forest, collecting anything he can find, but he knows his main problem is how he will deal with monsters. He suddenly senses something near him, and as he goes to investigate it, he finds 2 goblins which scares him. He sees their stats, and is surprised because even though they're small, their stats are higher than he expected, which makes him wonder if he can defeat them. He thinks he shouldn't waste the chance, so he decides to fight them, but he isn't confident his stick is capable of defeating them. He uses his skill called wrapping to enhance his stick with magic, and he's able to defeat one of the goblins. The other goblin attacks him, but he easily dodges its attacks, and defeats it by shooting magic from his stick. He knows there's a lot for him to improve on, but he's still happy that he won his first battle. He returns to the cave, and we see he got a wooden club from the goblin, but it's too heavy and its range is short, so he can't use it in a fight. He checks his stats, noticing that he leveled up, and all his stats have doubled. The next morning, as Haruka eats his breakfast, he gets sick of just eating mushrooms, and he wants to eat meat, but he thinks his class rep from his old world would yell at him for being ungrateful. He realizes his appraisal skill has also leveled up, and he's confused why all his items have a question mark in front of them, which makes him wonder if they were downgraded, but he decides to stop thinking about it. He goes outside to practice magic, and he gets excited when he finds food, but it's just another mushroom, and he wishes that meat grew on trees as well. He focuses on practicing magic, and he uses his magic infusion skill, which increases his magic defense and physical abilities. He feels incredible after using the skill, so he finds another 2 goblins and easily defeats them. He thinks he might be able to face 3 goblins at his current level, but when he comes across them, he gets scared and decides to retreat. He continues to hunt goblins during the day and study magic at night, and on the 5th day, he manages to defeat a goblin with a single hit. He finds a rabbit, and he plans to eat it since he has been craving meat, but he suddenly senses his classmates near him. He uses his magic sight to find the class rep, since he has known her since they were young, but he decides he shouldn't meet her, because he's enjoying his freedom and he doesn't want to change anything. The delinquent group from his class gets close, so he jumps in the bushes to hide, but they hear him, and as he's about to be caught, they find the rabbit and get distracted. Haruka follows after them, because even though he doesn't want to get involved, he's curious about what they're talking about. He realizes they plan to go after the girls, but he thinks they will be fine since the class rep is with them and she will see through their intentions. They start to tease a boy named Tanaka, telling him to teach them more about their skills, and they think they can do anything in the new world. After they leave, Haruka returns to the cave, but he's shocked to see that his loner title has leveled up, and he wonders if it's because he hid from his classmates. He sees that he's still level 3, and he thinks it's because of his 2 skills, Master of None and Blockhead, which are difficult to level up. Master of None makes him unable to focus on any particular skill, but it also allows him to do most things pretty well, while Blockhead is a completely useless skill. He starts to eat, thinking it will relieve his stress, but he's sad since all he has is mushrooms, and he wishes he could eat fish at least. At night, he hears people fighting, and as he goes outside, he sees the nerds from his class fighting against goblins, but they're struggling, so he wonders if he should help them. He uses his appraisal skill, and he's surprised that they can't defeat goblins even though their levels are much higher than him, and they also have better job titles. He remembers that they also have cheat skills, and he thinks the nerds should be experts when it comes to being in another world, so he thinks they'll be fine on their own, but before he can leave, he sees 2 goblins that are about to attack them from behind. He remembers the time he spent with them, so he jumps in and defeats the goblins. They thank him for saving them, but he struggles to speak normally because he hasn't spoken to anyone in a while. Haruka takes them to his cave, and he wonders why they were on their own, and he's shocked when they mention they're on the run. We go back to when they were all teleported to the new world, where everyone is losing their minds, but the nerds are calm, since they have read stories about being isekai'd. The class rep tries to calm everyone down, but a group of goblins suddenly appears behind her, which makes everybody panic. The nerds are the only ones ready to fight, and seeing them in action, the others also help them and they manage to defeat the goblins. After that, the class rep tells everyone they should move somewhere else with better visibility, so they go to the riverside, and the nerds take the initiative to build a camp since they already have knowledge about the other world. The class rep starts to assign tasks to everyone, but instead of working together, the students start complaining about their jobs. The popular girls refuse to do their tasks, and even though the class rep offers to help them, they still aren't willing to do it, so the others also stop working, saying the nerds will take care of everything. After that, only the class rep and the nerds keep doing all the work, while the others just lay around, complaining about how bored they are. The nerds keep fighting off the goblins, and they realize they need to level up, because the fights are getting tougher. One of the nerds recalls the 2 skills that allow a user to control other people, and he knows the delinquents have it since he saw them take it in the White Room. At night, the delinquents hunt the goblins, planning to level up their skills and go after the girls. The nerds hear their plan, and they tell everything to the class rep, and she decides to level up as well, so their power won't work on her. After a while, the delinquents finally unlock their skills, but when they try to use it on the class rep, she easily defeats them, and the nerds use their powers to seal their skills. Everyone learns about their sick plan, so they're kicked out of the group, but they soon return and attack everyone. They set the tents on fire, and after they leave, all the blame is put on the nerds, because they were the ones who picked a fight with the delinquents. The class rep tries to stand up for them, but the situation is too awkward, so the nerds decide to leave. Haruka feels bad for them since they went through so much, so he decides to treat them to some mushrooms. He spends the next day with them, and he thinks about how he won't be alone for a while, but he doesn't mind it. The next day, he bids them farewell, but they ask him to come with them. They plan on heading downstream to find a town and become adventurers, and they note that Haruka is just like them, so they tell him to join them, but he refuses their offer. After they leave, he thinks about how he's interested in the town, but his useless skills will just make him a burden on everyone. He decides to go and check on the others, since the nerds were worried about the class rep, but on his way there, he runs into a kobold. It bites his hand, so he beats it up with his stick, and even though his hand hurts, he still continues to move on. He reaches the campsite, and is surprised that no one is there, which makes him wonder if they moved somewhere else. He uses his magic to find footprints, and as he follows them, he runs into the popular girls, but he hides his face because he doesn't like interacting with them. They try to catch him, so he runs away, because he doesn't want them to ruin his loner lifestyle, but he's shocked when he hears them beg, so he decides to listen to them. They ask him where the nerds are, since he's close with them, and he thinks they just want the nerds to work for them again, but he's shocked when they say they want to apologize, because they're ashamed of their actions, realizing the reason they're alive is because of them. He mentions they can't catch up to the nerds, but they still want to know where they are, so Haruka asks them if they even know how to get out of the forest, and what they will do if they get attacked by monsters. He wonders if they're really going to apologize to the people who protected them, or if they're just going to give up, which makes them cry, but he needs to know how strong their determination is, or else they will just be a burden on the nerds. They ask him to teach them how to survive, and as he agrees to help them, his servitude skill activates, which makes them his servants. As they walk through the forest, the girls do everything to help Haruka, and he gets scared because they keep killing the monsters without saying anything. One of them gets hurt, so he gives her a potion, but she throws it at him instead of using it, which makes him smell like mushrooms. As he wonders how to cancel his servitude skill, the class rep suddenly shows up and tries to talk to him, but he doesn't notice her, so she ends up yelling at him. Meanwhile, we see the delinquents as they also make a plan, and they determine that they need to start by getting rid of their biggest problem. The class rep wonders what's going on, thinking the popular girls are acting strange, and Haruka finds it hard to explain himself. She freaks out when she learns he made them into his servants, but he mentions it was an accident. We see that the other girls from their class are also there, and they all find him suspicious. The class rep manages to wake up one of the girls, and Haruka tries to sneak away, but the class rep tells him to stay put. As the girls figure out what's going on, Haruka gets bored, so he decides to try upgrading his base, but he causes an explosion and ends up stuck in the ground. The class rep yells at him for causing trouble, but she helps get him free, and they realize he was helping the other girls, so they apologize for the misunderstanding. He asks if he can go home, and the class rep is confused by what he means, so he mentions he built his own home. The girls are impressed hearing this, and they have another meeting, asking him how many people he can fit in his house, so he mentions he could probably fit over 200, and the class rep can't believe he has such a big place to himself, mentioning how they're only barely surviving. She asks if they can stay over for the night, and Haruka freaks out, imagining having a sleepover with all of them, but the class rep tells him not to be weird about it. Haruka leads them through the forest, and the girls wonder how he knows where he's going, but we see he has a skill that's guiding him. They make it back to the cave, and Haruka welcomes them all to his house. They can't believe how incredible it is, and when Haruka mentions he has a bath, the girls can't resist, and they instantly jump in and relax, while Haruka freaks out outside. As Haruka goes to bed, he's glad to finally be alone again, thinking the girls are too much trouble, but the class rep suddenly visits him, and she thanks him for everything, mentioning how everyone has been worried ever since the boys left. She feels bad about not being able to help anyone, even though she's the class rep, but Haruka mentions how she has kept everyone safe. She also feels bad for the nerds, but Haruka tells her not to worry since they've been preparing all their lives to be summoned to another world. He manages to cheer her up, and she wishes him a good night as we see everyone resting, but Haruka can't sleep because he's bricked up thinking about all the girls. The next morning, Haruka is woken up by one of the girls, and she tells him that breakfast is ready. He gets embarrassed as she gets closer, so he asks her what they're eating, and she mentions they're having fish and mushrooms, so he gets excited and bumps into her head. He eats the fish, and he's brought to tears as the class rep wonders why he's crying, mentioning that he lives next to the river. So he explains he tried catching them, but they were always too slippery. He wonders how they caught the fish, and we see it's thanks to a girl with a lightning skill, and she uses it to shock all the fish. Haruka asks to see the skill again, so she shows it to him, and he uses his packing skill to grab it. He throws it into the river, unleashing the lightning, and he's excited to finally catch a fish, as we see he has also learned lightning magic. He explains that thanks to his packing skill and Master of None, he can learn almost anything, and the class rep thinks it's overpowered, but Haruka is just glad that his useless skills are good for something. Haruka asks the class rep what they plan on doing next, so she mentions they're thinking of going to the town, but thinks they should level up first, and Haruka offers to help them out. He starts by asking all the girls what level they're at, and we learn they're all around level 15, and Haruka can't believe how high level they are, because he's still at level 7. He finds some kobolds that are lower level than them, and the girls think it'll be an easy fight, but they're instantly defeated. We see them all regrouping in Haruka's tent, and he wonders what they're all doing in there, but they decide to keep training. The girl from the morning stays behind, and she apologizes for testing him, mentioning that the delinquents tried to take advantage of her, so she was making sure he wasn't like them, and she thanks him for everything he's done for them, and he calls her the fish girl. The next morning, Haruka wakes up to another fish, and he hears the popular girls wanting to fight the kobolds again, but the class rep tells them they need to train. So we see them training against goblins, and they have this series. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.